Hey there, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and this is your next story. The gravel doesn't give much, but I can feel the shift of the smaller rocks under my boots as I move, slow and deliberate. I carry the binoculars in one hand, my pistol holstered but loose on the side. No safety net here, just habits I've built over the last months. Behind me, the car is parked at an angle, half covered by a patch of waist-high brush. I left the engine off and cracked the windows just enough for airflow. Lily is sitting up in the passenger seat, pressed against the glass. She follows my every move but does not make a sound. She never does when she knows I'm serious. I gave her water and left the door unlocked. I stop near the perimeter and give the fence a proper look. It's not intact. About 15 feet to the right, a heavy tree crashed down at some point and folded a section of chain link inward. Rust stains run down the posts. Some of the wire is still sharp at the top, but the hole is large enough for a person to walk through with a little care. The area feels dead. Not calm, dead. No buzz of insects. No wind through open windows. No soft scuffle of something alive. That doesn't relax me. It tightens the risk. I crouch and put the binoculars to my face. The lenses are scratched, but they work. I scan the field inside the fence. Rusted coal hoppers stand in place with weeds climbing up the wheels. Flatbeds, box cars, one whole line of tanker cars. Most of the small buildings are no more than single-story utility structures. Workshops, storage, maybe an old break room. One of them has a door barely hanging on the hinges. Off to the left, raised above everything else, there's a short tower with a square shack built on top. Probably an old signal or operations post. The tracks below it stretch in every direction. I do not see anyone moving, but I take an extra 30 seconds to study shadows and corners. Anything that could hold movement I missed on the first pass. I duck under the edge of the twisted fence and step into the yard. I stop just inside, still in the cover of the overgrowth. The gravel here is more compacted but still makes noise under my steps. I test a few forward paces and then pause again. The yard smells like dry weeds, rust, and something else. Maybe old grease, hard to tell. The wind is almost non-existent, but the air isn't stale. It just feels like this place has been sealed off from everything for too long. I start walking again, slower now. I keep my eyes moving and lock in a reference point back to the tree break and the car. I don't want to guess later. I want to know exactly how to run if I need to. I keep count of steps in the back of my mind. Every 15 or 20, I stop and listen again. The last time I rushed through a place like this, I almost ended up cornered in a grocery warehouse. I don't make the same mistake twice. The boxcars closest to me are tagged with faded paint and numbers. Some doors stand halfway open, others sealed. I do not touch them yet. I scan through the narrow gaps between them. Shadows lie inside, deep and still. It would be easy to hide anything in there, from an infected to a person. I stay in the open for now, where I can see more than one direction at once. I move along the side of a long coal hopper, hand grazing the rusted steel as I pass. The top is still filled with black rock, hard and packed. That alone tells me this place froze mid-use. Someone intended to move that coal somewhere. No one ever did. I angle toward the far side of the yard where the tree line thickens. I saw that from the road and from the hill. It is my point of reference. Between the last line of trains and the forest, the ground opens into a narrow strip of field with scattered bushes. As I get closer, something bright catches my eye in the green. Round flashes of red and yellow. For a second my brain does not connect them. Then it does. Apples. There is an apple tree standing alone near an old worker's house, just inside the edge of the yard. Its branches hang low with fruit. Some apples lie on the ground in the grass, half eaten by insects or small animals. The sight hits me harder than it should. I have been eating from cans, bags, dried strips of meat. Even the berries in the forest felt strange. Actual apples in this graveyard of trains feel impossible. My focus narrows. I look around once, quick and shallow. No one stands under the tree. No tools, no chair, no obvious sign this is someone's spot. My better judgment whispers that nothing this good stands untouched in a world like this, but my feet are already moving. I step off the ballast and onto the shorter grass. My eyes track one low branch where a single apple hangs clear. It is not perfect. It has a small scar on one side. I do not care. I step forward again. My boot lands on something that does not feel like ground. The surface shifts hard and sudden. There is a snap from below. Before my mind can form a thought, something tight slams around my ankle and jerks me upward. The world flips on its head. My back swings through open air and my arms flail without direction. The handgun slips from my grip and drops somewhere out of reach. A sharp pain shoots up from my leg where the rope bites into skin over the boot. I hang upside down, swaying, staring at the dirt and the tangle of grass below. A simple snare. Rope, a bent branch, a trigger point I never saw because I was staring at fruit like a fool. I reach up toward my ankle, but the knot is tight and the rope is under tension. My fingertips brush it and slide off. Blood moves down into my face. My head feels hot and heavy. I curse out loud, more at myself than the trap. Then I hear footsteps. Fast, light ones, coming from the trees. I twist in the rope, trying to see. A figure bursts from behind the apple tree. Small, thin, wearing a faded jacket tied at the waist and pants that are patched at the knees. Hair pulled back in a rough ponytail. A girl. She carries a heavy stick gripped in both hands. Her eyes are wide, but not frightened. Focused. Wait, I manage, the word mangled by the blood in my head. I am not... She does not listen. Maybe she cannot even hear the words over the rush of decision in her own head. She raises the stick and swings. The wood catches me on the side of the skull. There is a sharp flash at the edge of my vision. My jaw goes slack. The yard, the tree, the upside-down angle of the world, all vanish in an instant. When I come back, my mouth tastes of metal and dust. My head pulses in a dull, steady way. The air is cooler. I am upright. My arms do not move when I try to shift them. Rope presses across my chest and around my wrists. I blink until the blur clears enough to see. I sit in a metal chair bolted to the floor of a small concrete room. The walls are bare, stained with old leaks. There is a single narrow window high on one wall with wire mesh over it. The main door is solid steel. In the center of that door is a small square opening with vertical bars welded across. Through that opening, a corridor stretches away into shadow. Someone stands at the end of it, a woman, early 20s maybe, dark hair tied back neatly, simple worn clothes, a long shirt and pants, sleeves rolled. She stands still, hands at her sides, watching me without hiding. Her gaze is steady in a way that makes my throat dry. No fear, just a careful, hard evaluation. I try to swallow and feel the tender spot on my skull flare when my neck muscles move. Good. He is awake, she says. Her voice carries down the corridor easily. No echo, just flat sound against the concrete. Footsteps approach. The girl from the tree appears in the doorway, behind the bars. She is shorter than I first thought, maybe 16. Same dark hair, but looser, some strands across her forehead. There is a smear of dirt along her cheek and a mark on her knuckles where she gripped the stick. She looks at me with open anger. You walk into our place. You go for the tree. You do not call out. You do not ask, she says. That is what raiders do. I saw apples, I say. My voice scratches. That sounds ridiculous even as the words come out. I checked the yard. It looked empty. That was stupid. I know. The older woman steps closer to the door. I can see her face better. There is a scar at the edge of her lip, faint and old. Her eyes are tired in a way that does not come from one bad week. Who are you? She asks. And do not waste our time. My first instinct is to throw out some fake name and vague story. That instinct feels hollow now. I have been alone too long. I barely remember how to lie to another person's face. So I tell the truth. My name is Mark, I say. I came from the city. I had an auto repair shop there. It was a car wash, gas station, Small market and the garage. I stayed there for months. I fixed what I could. I blocked the doors. I made it home. Then it got too risky. Herds came closer. People got worse. I left. The younger one snorts at that. The older one does not react, so I keep going. I found a car that still worked. A sedan. I drove. I stayed away from highways as much as I could. I stopped in a forest for a bit. Survived there. Then I followed the rail line and saw this place from the road. It looked empty and big enough to be worth a look. That is all. I have one car outside the fence. No backup. No group. The older woman tilts her head slightly. You say you were alone in a city, she says. What about family? The question lands deep. I feel my jaw tighten. I do not get a break from that topic, even here. My mother and my sister were in my hometown when the outbreak started, I say. I was away on a work trip. The phone networks died before I could get back. I never reached them. I do not know if they are alive. I want to believe there is some shelter that held. I have no proof. The younger sister mutters something I do not catch. I see the older one flicker a quick look that quiets her. She drops her gaze back to me. You said one car, she says. You walked in on foot. Where is this car? In the scrub, off the gravel road, I answer. Behind the trees on the south side, I parked it facing out. It is full of my things. There is also a cat inside. If she is not inside, then she is near the car. She does not go far. The younger girl frowns. A cat? Her name is Lily, I say. Saying it out loud eases something. Just a little. I found her in an apartment search and brought her with me. You can check. The windows are covered with cloth and cardboard, but you can see her through the front if she is awake. The older woman looks at me for a long moment. Then she turns her head toward the girl. Jess, she says quietly, go look at the road. Leave the rope on him. I will stay here. So now I know their names, at least half of them. Jess scowls once more in my direction and then disappears from the door. Her footsteps fade down the hall. A door bangs in the distance. Then silence returns. The older woman stays by the bars and continues to watch me. I try to shift in the chair. The ropes around my wrists and chest do not cut, but they are tight enough to keep me from doing anything useful. I test them anyway. No give. I give up on that. If you are lying, and there are more people out there, we will know, she says. If you are alone, that is not really better. Alone men who show up at outposts tend to bring trouble anyway. I believe you, I say. I lived through a few of those in the city. I am not here to take your place. I was looking for an empty spot to work with. That is it. You came through the fence without calling out, she says. You walked to the tree. You did not speak until you were hanging in the air. That does not sound like someone who was afraid of locals. That is fair, I say. Honestly, I got stupid when I saw those apples. I checked for people from the road and the hill. I saw no smoke, no sound. I convinced myself it was abandoned. That is on me. Her eyes move up to the bump on my temple where Jess hit me. She looks at it without apology, just evaluating how deep the damage runs. You may wish to be more careful, Mark from the city, she says. If Jess had used the shovel instead of the stick, you would not be saying any of this. Before I can think of a reply, a faint sound comes down the corridor. A distant, angry meow. That sound is familiar in a way that cuts through everything. I close my eyes once, then open them. That is her, I say. That is Lily. The woman looks down the hall. I hear more footsteps. 2 sets this time. Jess appears again, holding Lily pressed against her chest with both arms. Lily is not calm. Her ears are flat, and her tail thumps against Jess's jacket. Jess has a small scratch on her hand. She bit me, Jess says, annoyed, and she was yowling inside that car. It is a mess in there. Blankets, cans, tools, trash. Looks like someone sleeps in the driver's seat. No one else is around. I checked as far as the drainage ditch. The older woman takes Lily from her gently. Lily shifts once, and then locks onto the sound of my voice as I say her name again. The woman carries her closer to the bars. "Here," she says, and loosens her grip enough that Lily can jump. Lily springs through the gap near the hinge, claws catching air, and lands in my lap. She scrambles up my chest and presses her face against my chin, pushing and kneading at the rope. She lets out a string of frustrated little sounds, and then settles on my shoulder, feet dug into my shirt. The pressure is sharp but familiar. Jess watches this with a strange expression, like she wants to stay angry, but some other feeling is pushing in. The older woman lets out a small breath through her nose. "He was not lying about at least one thing," she says. "And the car?" Jess shrugs, full of junk that matches his story. Extra clothes, food, water, tools, the window patch. Nothing that says, "Raid team." No spare radios. No extra weapons. No maps with circles on them. The older woman nods once. She reaches to the side of the door where I cannot see, and I hear metal clink. A moment later, the steel swings open with a slow scrape, bars and all. She steps inside the room, keeping a safe distance. Jess stays in the doorway with the stick resting on her shoulder. "We untie you slowly," the older sister says. "If you do something stupid, we do not talk about it. We just fix the mistake and put you somewhere deeper." "That is fair too," I say. She moves behind the chair and starts working on the rope around my chest. Her hands are quick and sure. The knots loosen one by one. When the tension drops, my shoulders sag a little. She leaves the rope around my wrists for now. "Stand up," she says. I stand carefully, legs unsteady from time in the chair and from the earlier hang. Lily jumps down and circles my feet, then sits where she can keep all three of us in sight. "My name is Mara," the older sister says. "This is Jess. Our father brought us here at the start. This yard is our home. We have stayed alive here for a long time. If you stay, you live under our rules. If you cause problems, you leave or you go under the ground. There is no in between." "I understand," I say. "I did not come here to take anything from you. I saw the tower above the tracks. I thought if the place was empty, that would make a good watch point and maybe a place to live. That was my idea coming in." Mara glances toward Jess. The younger sister rolls her eyes slightly but does not object. "The tower is dangerous right now," Mara says. "The stairs are weak. The inside is full of broken equipment. We do not use it much. Our main living space is one of the passenger cars. You can see it, if you remember how to walk without stepping into every trap on the ground." She moves behind me again and unties my wrists. The rope falls away. I rub my hands, feeling the numbness start to fade. Jess steps aside and gestures with her stick toward the hallway. "Come on, apple thief," she says. "Let us see if you can do anything besides get stuck in cords." We walk down the corridor and out into the open yard. The light feels sharp after the dim room. Mara leads. Jess follows on my left, close enough that the stick can swing easily if I try something. Lily pads behind us, tail upright, checking each corner with quick looks. Mara walks with confidence, stepping over rails and around debris without looking down. She threads us through rows of cars, past a tanker labeled with faded hazardous markings, past a flatbed loaded with old beams, past the coal hoppers I saw earlier. She points out things with short comments when she feels like it. Coal hopper, still mostly full. We use it for the stove. Diesel tanker. We do not touch it much. No point if there is no engine to drink it. Cardboard car, clothing car. She flicks her hand toward a pair of boxcars. Workshops over there. Pump house near the middle. Garden beyond that. We reach a line of older passenger cars set off on a side track. One of them has its windows boarded from the inside in a way that looks purposeful and clean. A metal stovepipe rises from the roof and ends in a simple cap. There is a small set of stairs made from stacked pallets leading up to one of the side doors. "This is home," Mara says. She climbs the pallet steps and opens the door. "For us. For you. For now. This is one of your work points. You do not sleep here. Not until we trust you more. Inside the car, the air is warmer and carries the smell of coal, cooked food, and old cloth. The interior has been stripped of most original seating. In its place, there are 2 narrow beds, a table with crates for legs, shelves lined with jars, cans, and bundles of wrapped food, and a steel drum stove with a door cut into it. A pipe rises from the top and joins the stovepipe that exits through the roof. The floor is covered where possible with rugs that clearly came from different places. I stand in the doorway and take it in. It looks lived in, real. It reminds me of the auto shop before I left, but more organized. The girls have had longer to settle. There are hooks for tools and clothes, a little corner with books and a deck of cards, even a nailed-up piece of cardboard with small marks scratched into it in lines and blocks. Some kind of tracking system. Mara steps past the stove and checks a pot with a cloth. It smells like some kind of soup or stew. Nothing rich, but it makes my stomach tighten. Jess leans her stick against the wall and drops into a crouch near one bunk, stretching her arms. She keeps her eyes on me anyway. You said you were running a shop before, Mara says, not looking at me. What did you actually do, in the old life? I worked with servers, I say. Computers. I kept systems up for companies. Sometimes went on trips to check hardware. I was not a mechanic before the world started falling apart. Anything I can fix now is from trial and error, and video tutorials I saw years back. Jess snorts softly. So you are a desk guy who thinks he can build an outpost in a rail yard, she says. Great. Yes, I say. Pretty much. Desk guy, now with dirt and scars. I nod toward the bump on my skull. Now with upgrades. That gets a tiny smile from her before she smooths her face again. Mara ladles some soup into a metal bowl and sets it on the table with a spoon. She points at the chair. Sit, eat, she says. Then we are going to show you where the pump is. You are going to haul water. That is our trust test. If you are here to map this place for raiders, hauling water is not a very glamorous first step. I sit and eat with slow, careful motions. The soup is thin but hot. Potatoes, bits of beans, a few shreds of something that might be squirrel or rabbit. It is better than most of what I had on the road. Lily jumps up on the bench beside me and watches every movement of the spoon, but she does not try to steal any. She knows there is usually something put aside for her later. So that is how my time at the yard starts. Tied to a chair, watched, released, fed once, and then set straight into work. The first days blur into a routine made of other people's rules. Mara has a system for everything. She shows me the hand pump in a small brick house near the center of the yard. You have to prime it with a bit of water each morning. It groans, and then the flow starts, clear and cold into the bucket. From there, it goes into cans and jugs that need to be carried back to the passenger car and to a couple of other points. Never trust one water source, she says as we work. If something happens to this pump, we have the stream by the tree line. It is dirtier, but we can filter it. That takes more time and more fuel, so you protect the pump first. When we are not moving water, we are moving coal. The hopper car sits on a siding with a small gangway. We climb up with buckets, fill them, climb down, walk the weight over to the passenger car, and stack it in a metal bin near the stove. The coal leaves dust on our hands and faces. We cough through it and keep going. Jess watches me at first like she expects me to drop the buckets and run at any second. When I do not run and do not complain much, her posture eases a little. She starts talking more, in short pieces, usually while we work on something that does not require total silence. Our father brought us here on a train, she says, while we move a stack of flattened cardboard sheets from one boxcar to a sheltered spot near the garden. He said the city was going to fall, and that the yard was far enough from everything that the worst of it would miss us. He had keys for most of the doors. He parked the train, locked the engines, and told us to stay here. We had power for a while. He got the main building running with a generator. Then some men from the yard left and never came back. The phones went down. The radio stopped making sense. After that, he left. Said he had to go back with one locomotive to get our mother. Said he would be 3 days. She cuts off there, jaw tightening. I open my mouth to ask what happened next and then decide not to. She answers anyway a few minutes later when we take a break and sit on an upside-down crate. He never came back, she says. We heard a crash far away along the line a week later and saw smoke over the trees. That is all. Mara does not talk about him much at first. She focuses on tasks, garden maintenance, inspecting the fence, checking the edges of the yard for fresh tracks. It is only at night when we sit near the stove and share a last cup of hot water or thin tea that she lets small details slip. He taught us how to shoot, she says one night while Lily sleeps curled between my feet on the floor. We had one rifle and his old handgun. He said we needed to know how to use them, not to be afraid of the noise. Back then, there were military trains going past here for a bit. Uniforms, vehicles, crates. They did not stop for long. Then one day, no more trains, no more uniforms, no more noise from the radio, just static. That was when he left. I tell them about the auto shop in exchange, about the car wash bay where I set up sleeping space, about the ramps in the garage where I learned enough about suspensions and oil pans to keep a few cars from dying on me, about the night a man tried to break in through the roof and fell through a weak panel, landing in the middle of my fortress, how I had to choose in seconds whether to let him up or knock him back down and lock him in. I ended up feeding him for 2 days and then forcing him back out when he tried to steal my handgun. No clear hero in that story. Just 2 frightened people doing what they thought might keep them alive 1 more week. When I describe the months on the road with Lily, Lily lifts her head as if she understands part of the memory. Jess grins at that despite herself. Your cat has seen more of this region than we have, she says. Outrageous. We move from supervised work to joint work when a problem presents itself inside one of the storage buildings. Mara takes us to a low workshop near the center of the yard that has been closed up since near the beginning. She says a door on the far side will not shut. The wind keeps banging it at night. That kind of noise carries. She wants it fixed. We come in through the front, pry the warped door open, and step into a room that smells of old grease and stale air. It looks untouched at first. Tool racks line the walls. A workbench sits in the center with rusted bolts scattered across it. There is a dark stain in one corner that might be oil. Shelves hold boxes of parts where rodents have chewed at the cardboard. Jess pushes ahead before Mara can stop her, eager to reach the far door. She kicks at a fallen chair and laughs softly when it skids across the floor. The sound bounces off the walls and feels wrong in my ears. I open my mouth to warn her to slow down. That is when I hear the sound from behind a set of shelves. A muffled scraping and a low, rough growl. I move without thinking. I reach Jess's jacket collar and pull her back from the path between the shelves. At the same moment, something slams against the shelving from the other side. A hand shoots through the gap between crates, fingers clawing at the air where Jess's chest had been a heartbeat earlier. A face appears through the gap. Grey skin, sunken eyes, dried lips pulled back from teeth. An infected, pinned behind the shelf by some weight I cannot see. It strains against the obstruction, snapping its jaw. Its arms reach through the gap and scratch at the air. It does not care about the shelving cutting into its shoulders and chest. It just wants to reach us. Jess sucks in a sharp breath, stumbling back into me. I shove her behind me and step forward, wrench already out of its loop on my belt. Mara is moving at the same time, handgun out, but the angle is bad for a clean shot without risking a ricochet. She stops at my shoulder. I swing the wrench. The head of it connects with the infected skull through the gap. The impact is solid. The head jerks sideways and bounces off the wooden crate. The infected only pauses for a second, then comes forward again, jaw snapping at the empty space. I grit my teeth and hit it again, and again. Short, sharp strikes. I am careful not to let my arms overextend, careful not to let the wrench slip. After several blows, the movement's slow. One more hit and the body slumps against the shelf, still pinned but no longer moving. I step back, breathing hard through my nose. My hands shake just a little. Not enough to drop the tool, enough to notice. Jess stands frozen behind me, eyes wide. Mara holsters the handgun and moves to check the far door, using the crowbar she brought to nudge it open and make sure nothing else waits behind it. "You all right?" I ask Jess without turning. She swears under her breath in a way that would have gotten her grounded in the old world. Then she nods. "I am fine," she says, voice tight. "You pulled me back. Thanks. I should have listened. I know we do not rush into closed rooms. I just wanted to fix the door and be done. I am tired of that banging at night." Mara comes back, satisfied that there are no more surprises inside. She looks at the dead infected pinned behind the shelf. Her jaw flexes once. "That is one of the first ones," she says quietly. "From when some of the yardmen got sick trying to move a group of strangers through here. We thought we had cleared them all. Father must have shoved this one behind the shelf when things got bad. We never opened this room again after he left. We should have. That is on me." She turns to me then. "Good reaction," she says, "and good instincts checking Jess. That is the only reason we are not cleaning up after a bite right now." We drag the infected out with hooks and clear the room fully. We dispose of the body in a pit outside the fence, where they burn remains in controlled stacks. It is a long process. No one talks much during it. The smell is bad even from a distance. We go back and scrub the workshop floor with rags and water. It feels necessary, not just for hygiene, but to mark the room as part of the present, not a sealed piece of the worst moments. The next week settle into a rhythm that is still new but less sharp at the edges. I move from basic hauling to shared projects. We repair sections of fence with scavenged wire and scrap. We clean and restock the garden beds. I climb into the coal car with Jess and we redistribute the load so it is easier to reach without risking a fall. Mara starts asking me short questions about my car, about engines, about what I know and what I do not. It takes me a bit to see where this is going. She takes me to the furniture delivery van one morning. It sits near an old loading dock, tires soft, windshield dusty, small plants growing around its wheels. The logo on the side is faded almost to nothing. "We have had this van since the beginning," she says. "Father got it running once, then the battery died. We do not have many spare parts. We have the diesel tanker. We have the yard. We do not have a way to move more than our feet. I can keep this place alive on foot. To make it better, we need wheels again. Can you help with that, server man?" I walk around the van, looking at it the way I learned to look at cars months ago. Nothing fancy, just the basics. Rust spots at the edges of the doors. Glass intact. Mirrors cracked but usable. I peer under it, check for major leaks. There is oil caked in places, but nothing pouring out. "I am not a real mechanic," I say, honest as I can be. I can do basic stuff. Change fluids, swap a battery, clear a line if it is obviously clogged. We can try. No promises. It might not even be worth it. The engine could be trashed, but sitting here, it is useless anyway. So we try. We pull the front plate and open the hood. The engine bay is a nest of wires, hoses, and dull metal. Some of it I recognize from my crossover. Enough to start. We check the oil. It is dark but not sludge. We check belts and hoses. Cracks, but nothing fully broken. We pull the battery and take it to the workshop to test with a small rig Mara's father had built to check charge. It is mostly dead. In one corner of the shop there is another battery from an old truck, slightly better. We decide to try that. Fuel is the main concern. We do not want to suck in sludge from the van's tank. We use a hand pump to pull some into a clear jar. It is dirty, with flecks of rust and some water at the bottom. We drain the tank as best we can, catching the worst of it in buckets to dispose of later. Then we draw fresh diesel from the tanker into a clean can and pour that into the van's tank through a makeshift filter of cloth and a funnel. It is not perfect. It is better than doing nothing. As we work, the sun shifts overhead. The yard stays quiet. Once in a while I catch movement on the far side of the fence, but it is just deer near the tree line. Jess moves between us and the perimeter, checking her rifle and the small watch points they have made between cars. Lily sits on the loading dock, tail wrapped around her paws, eyes half closed, listening to the sounds of tools and voices. When we finally hook up the replacement battery and check our connections one more time, the whole group pauses. There is a shared understanding that this is about more than a van. If we can get this running, it changes the map in our heads. Everyone inside or under cover, Mara says. If this thing catches fire or throws something, I do not want shrapnel in anyone's face. She looks at me. You do the honors. You broke our peace by walking into that tree. Maybe you bring us something useful to balance it. I slide into the driver's seat. The interior smells like old dust and rodent droppings. I brush a pile of dry leaves off the dashboard and insert the key. It turns with resistance but does not snap. I rest my hand on it. I listen for a second. Nothing. Just my own breathing and the faint murmur of the sisters' voices outside. I turn the key. The starter grinds slowly. The engine turns but does not catch. I release, wait 10 seconds, and try again. More grinding, a cough, then silence. I count my breath in and out, focus on the basics. New fuel in the lines, air in the system, old engine. It may need time. Third try. I twist the key and hold it a heartbeat longer. The starter squeals. Then the engine begins to catch in small, uneven bursts. I keep the key turned until the jumps smooth out into a rough idle. The whole van vibrates. The steering wheel trembles under my hand. The sound is loud in the quiet yard. It feels like shouting into the air. I pull my hand away and let it run. The temperature gauge begins to move very slowly. A faint haze of exhaust drifts from the tailpipe. Outside, Mara raises a hand to shield her eyes and looks around, scanning the fence line. Jess already has her rifle up, sighting at the far corners where infected might appear. I see 2 figures at the fence within minutes, slow infected, drawn by the noise. They drag their feet across the gravel and reach for the wire. The fence creaks, then holds. Jess takes position on top of a small container near the entrance. She braces the rifle on her knee and takes careful shots. One infected drops, then the next. She does not waste rounds. She waits for clear targets, then pulls the trigger only when she is sure. The shots echo, then fade. No herd rushes the fence. Just those 2. The yard settles again. I shut the engine off after a few minutes to avoid drawing more attention. The lingering rumble in my bones tells me how strange it is to hear a vehicle running now. It used to be background noise. Here it is an event. That will do, Mara says, when I climb out. She puts a hand on the van's side and gives it a firm pat. We can work with this. City is still an hour away at best from here, but it is better to make that trip in this than on foot. We will save the diesel for big runs, not casual drives. No joyrides. Jess grins and runs a hand along the door. We have a truck again, she says in a low voice. Father would have liked that. The next phase of my time at the yard is marked by the van and the tower. With a way to move faster, our idea of what is possible changes. With a tall vantage point, our idea of safety changes. Mara decides we can risk one trip into the city to get better tools. We plan it down to the order of which doors we use. We go in early, she says the night before, bent over a rough map drawn on cardboard. We stay out of the main roads. No hospitals, no malls. We hit small hardware and maybe one grocery if it is not burned out. We do not chase shadows. If we see other survivors working a block, we go around. If we see military or government tape, we take it as a warning and move on. Our goal is simple: hand tools, fasteners, and anything for water treatment. That is it. Who is going? I ask. Me and you, she says. Jess stays here. She knows the yard best. If a herd wanders toward the fence while we are gone, she can guide them away or hide until they pass. She also watches Lily. Cats are good in many things, but she will not drive the van back if we do not return. Jess glares at the map. I want to go, she says. I am the one who knows the city corners we have used before. And you are the one I need here if things go wrong, Mara answers calmly. This is not up for debate. Someone has to guard home. That is not a lesser job. Jess looks ready to argue more, then looks at me, then at Lily, who is washing her paws on the table. Something in her face settles. Fine, she says, but you bring me something good, even if it is just a pack of seeds and a stupid toy for the cat. We leave before the sun is fully up. The van rolls out of the yard with a soft crunch of gravel. I sit in the driver's seat. Mara is in the passenger seat with the rifle across her lap and the handgun in a side pocket. The road ahead is a stripe of cracked pavement and weeds. The drive is a mix of old noise and new tension. Each turn reminds me of previous roads, previous wrecks. We pass a small bridge where the guardrail has been smashed inward. Below, a car lies on its roof in the dry riverbed, door hanging open. No movement, no sound. We keep going. Near the outskirts of the city, abandoned vehicles start to cluster. We weave between them, careful not to scrape too hard or get high-centered. Infected appear sometimes between buildings. Lone figures in torn clothes, moving without purpose until the sounds of the van turn their heads. Mara taps my arm when she sees any close to our path. I adjust our line to keep them at distance when possible. We pick a small hardware store in a strip mall where the parking lot is mostly clear. The front windows are cracked, but not completely smashed. The metal security gate is bent in one corner, enough for a person to slide through if he is patient. There are dried stains near the entrance. I do not look too closely. We park near a side loading area, not right at the front. I kill the engine. The silence after the rumble feels strange again. We listen. Distant groans, but none right on top of us. Wind through broken signs. A loose piece of metal tapping somewhere. Nothing immediate. Inside the store, the air is stale. Someone looted most of the obvious items months ago. The front racks are bare. The shelves near the middle are picked through with gaps and scattered junk. The back aisles, the ones that require more effort and knowledge, still hold useful things. We move through quickly. Mara grabs boxes of screws, bolts and nails. I pull rope, paracord and a couple of tire repair kits. On a high shelf I find a manual winch and a small pulley set covered in dust. I hand them down. Those are gold for the tower. We find a plastic crate and load it. As we move toward the stockroom door, we hear the first impact at the front security gate. A thud, then another. Infected outside, drawn by the sound of movement and our steps on the floor. The gate rattles. The locks hold for now. Time to go, Mara says. She checks the back door. It is chained from the inside, but not completely. We use a bolt cutter we found near the stock table to break the chain. The noise echoes. We freeze. Listen. The gate at the front bangs again, harder, but does not give. Not yet. We slip out the back into the loading alley. 3 infected stagger near the dumpsters, drawn by the earlier noise. They see us immediately. Their movements pick up. They are not full sprinters, but they are faster than the purely rotted ones. I raise the handgun and shoot the first in the chest. The impact slows it but does not drop it. I adjust aim and put the second shot higher. That one falls. Mara moves on the one on the left, swinging the crowbar into its knee first to drop it, then finishing it while it struggles to stand. The last one reaches me and grabs at my jacket. I twist, slam its arm away with my forearm, and put the barrel under its chin before pulling the trigger. That is the fastest way I can think of that does not risk a graze or a miss in this tight space. The shot blasts through the skull and sprays shards onto the bricks behind it. There is blood, but I do not stare. We drag the bodies a few feet to clear our path, grab the crate, and run it to the van. As I drive out of the alley, I catch a glimpse of the front of the store. The gate has started to buckle. Hands reach through. Faces press against the bars. We made it out in time. Another 10 minutes inside and we would have been wrestling the gate from the wrong side. We stop at one more small grocery on the way out, long enough to grab salt, some canned goods that have not swelled or rusted through, and a small bag of dried beans. Then we leave the city behind, following a different route out to avoid bringing any large group back along our exact trail. When the yard's rails appear again in the distance, I feel the tension in my shoulders ease a little. Jess waits near the gate, rifle in hand, eyes bright. "You were gone long enough," she says as we roll in. "I was about to come driving after you in your precious sedan and bring Lily for backup." "You would have killed the sedan on the first pothole," I say, "and Lily would have taken your seat. Also, we brought this." I hold up a pack of seeds and a small rubber ball we found in a toy bin that somehow survived. She takes the seeds with real interest and flicks the ball at Lily, who studies it with deep suspicion before batting it once. The work on the tower begins that week. With new tools and hardware, we can do more than patch. We can build. We approach the tower carefully. The metal stairs rattle under our boots at first. Some of the steps have rusted through at the edges. We tie ropes around our waists, anchored to the supports, while we test each section. I go up first with a hammer and a small bag of bolts. Mara follows with a board. Jess stays at the bottom watching for infected and passing up supplies through a pulley we rig at the mid-level. We reinforce each weak step with a cut piece of steel or thick board bolted into the sound parts of the frame. We install a handrail where there was none before, using scavenged pipe and brackets. The work is slow and awkward, but each day the stairs feel a little more solid. Inside the tower box, we strip out old signal equipment that no longer serves any use. Some panels we keep for parts. Others we move to the side and leave for later ideas. The floor is covered in dust and loose screws. We sweep it out, patch a hole near one corner with a piece of sheet metal, and seal cracks around the windows with scraps of cardboard and cloth. I move part of my life in there gradually. A blanket and pillow go into one corner as a bed. A crate becomes a shelf for a small stack of books and a notebook where I have started writing down supply counts and tasks. Another crate serves as a seat near the front window. I keep a pair of binoculars hanging on a hook by that spot. Lily explores the space, sniffing each corner, and finally chooses the windowsill near the east side as her personal rest zone. From the tower, the yard makes more sense. I can see the layout clearly. The lines of cars, the open spaces, the paths we use most. I can see the approach roads and the tree line where the stream runs. I can also see how exposed we are if a really large herd ever finds its way here. The trains make walls, but they also make blind curves. It gives me a long list of things to fix that none of us have the strength or time to handle in one go. Still, seeing the whole thing helps. Nights in the tower are strange at first. I hear every creak of metal, every distant call of animals, every thump of wind against the cars. My mind conjures threats in every sound. I sit awake for hours, watching the edges. Slowly, patterns emerge. Some noises are regular. A loose cable hitting a post, a branch brushing a roof. Other sounds mark real changes. Footsteps on gravel, a cough that is not mine, a broken branch that does not match the wind. Those get my full attention. It is on one of those nights that Mara joins me in the tower for the first time. She climbs the reinforced stairs with careful steps, carrying a mug in each hand. I hear her before I see her. When she appears in the hatch, I move the crate so she has room. "Could not sleep?" I ask. Jess is snoring. The stove is too hot. "The usual," she says, handing me a mug. "Thought I would see what the world looks like from your little nest." We sit in silence for a while, sipping hot water flavored with a few dried leaves from the small herb patch in the garden. The yard lies below us, dim enough that only outlines show. The sky is clear. Stars are visible for once. No city glow to wash them out. "You mentioned your mother and sister," she says after a long pause. "Do you ever think about going back to your original town, not the city, the place where they were?" "Every day," I say. I think about it so much that my brain runs in circles. On the one hand, I know that months have passed, that the chances of them surviving without someone like you here to organize things are low. On the other hand, I know what my mother is like. Stubborn, organized. She worked as a nurse for decades. She knows how to keep people alive. My sister takes after her. So it is possible they found a pocket that held. If I write it off and I am wrong, I will carry that forever, so yes, I think about going back. I just do not know when that stops being hope and starts being suicide. Mara nods slowly. We had that with our father, she says. For a long time we watched the rail lines for any sign of a train. We listened for the horn pattern he told us he would use. Short, short, long. Every distant sound made us stand up straight. It took us about a year to accept that he was not coming. Do you think he died on the line? I ask. I think he tried to get back, she says. He would not leave us here and just start a new life. He was not that kind of man. So if he did not come back, something stopped him. The rails were blocked. The engine failed. The infected swarmed the track. I do not know. I know the direction he left in, just not the exact place where it ended. We sit with that for a while. The rail lines stretch in my mind, running off into the dark. Somewhere along that path, a locomotive sits, maybe on its side, maybe nose down in a ditch, maybe still upright with all its systems dead. What is left inside is a question I am not really sure I want answered. Would you want to know? I ask quietly. If we found it, if we found him. Yes, she says, without hesitation. Knowing hurts. Not knowing quietly eats everything. I prefer the first one. That answer lodges in my mind and stays there. The next time we patrol along the rail line outside the yard, I find myself staring down the tracks longer than I used to, wondering how far it would be to the spot where things went wrong. We do that patrol a week later. The excuse is simple. We need to check the line for any damage that could send strays toward the yard. We also need to see if any big clusters of infected are wandering parallel to it. Mara and I walk along the ballast, rifles slung, knives at our belts. Jess stays back this time to guard the yard and work the garden. Several miles out, the ground starts to dip where the line cuts through a shallow rise. Trees hang over the track. The space feels tighter. The rails here show more wear, like something heavy fought against them. We round a bend and see it. A single locomotive lies at an angle in the cut, one set of wheels off the rails, buried in the ballast. The front end is dented where it hit the embankment. The windshield is cracked. The paint is peeled and streaked with rust. No other cars are attached. Just the engine. I stop. Mara stops beside me. Her hand goes to her mouth once, then drops. We stand there for a long moment. Then she walks forward slowly, boots crunching on loose rock. We climb up the side of the locomotive. The metal is rough and cold under my hands. The door to the cab is half open. Inside, dust covers the controls. A jacket hangs on the back of the driver's seat. There is a locket on the console, its chain broken. When Mara picks it up and opens it, I see two small photos. Two girls younger than the ones beside me now. A woman between them with warm eyes. Mara closes the locket and keeps it in her fist. She does not cry. Her eyes are wet, but no tears fall. She looks at the driver's seat and the worn place on the floor where Boots stood for years. The rest of him is gone. Whether he left here on his own 2 feet and died farther along, or whether animals and time took what was left, I do not know. There is no body. Just this shell. This is it, she says quietly. This is where he stopped. Do you want to take anything back? I ask. She runs a hand along the jacket and then pulls it free from the seat. This, she says, and the locket. The rest can stay. This was his post. I think he would not mind if we turned his last train into a warning marker on our map. We climb down and walk back along the line, quieter than before. Back at the yard, Jess listens to the story with tight lips. She takes the jacket and runs her fingers along the seams. Then she hangs it in the passenger car near the door. Now we know, she says, so we stop listening for horns that will not come. That is something. Knowing does not make the world easier, it just makes it clearer. The next test for our new life here comes without any plan. It rides the rails in a way that makes the whole yard feel small. I am in the tower when it starts. The day is dry and cool. The sky is pale. From this height, the land looks flat and harmless. I scan the tracks out of habit, looking for anything that does not match my mental image of the last few days. At first, I see nothing unusual. Then I catch a slow wave of movement along the main line far to the east. I lift the binoculars. What I see makes my throat go dry. Dozens of infected move along the rails in a loose line. Some walk directly on the tracks. Others stagger on the ballast beside them. Their clothes hang in strips. Some are missing pieces. There are enough of them that the group looks like a smear of motion instead of separate bodies at first glance. They are not moving fast, but they are moving steadily, and the line leads directly toward the yard. I bang a metal bar against the tower frame 3 times, pause, then 3 more times. It is the signal we agreed on for large-scale trouble. Down below, I see Mara drop her shovel in the garden and run for the passenger car. Jess sprints up onto a flat car, rifle already in hand. "Infected on the main line," I shout down, not sure if my voice reaches them clearly. "Many, coming straight in." We do not have time for debates. We have rehearsed parts of this on paper. Now we test it in real movement. Mara reaches the switchyard panel near the entrance and throws the levers we marked. 2 free boxcars that we positioned days ago begin to roll down slight slopes. One crosses a critical gap between rows of cars, forming a solid wall where an open lane used to be. The other moves into place to narrow a parallel path into a choke point. Jess runs along the tops of the cars, moving from one vantage point to the next, laying out small noisemakers where she can light or trigger them. I stay in the tower and track the herd as it approaches. They do not think. They follow the rails because the rails give them a clear path. Sound bounces along the cut. A few infected drift off into the trees, distracted by animals or fallen branches, but most stay with the main group. When they reach the outer edge of the yard, Jess triggers the first noise source, a metal can with stones in it tied to a string. She pulls it from a safe distance, and it rattles in a way that draws attention. The infected nearest that sound turn toward it and funnel into the narrower path we made. The boxcars on either side limit their spread. The ground there is uneven. Some stumble and fall. Others trip over them. The mass presses forward. Mara moves along the inner edge of the yard, crowbar ready, handgun holstered unless something breaks through. She shouts quick updates toward the tower when she has breath. I shout back what I see from above. A few infected break away from the main path and head for the fence at weak spots. 3 at the south corner, I call. 1 fast, 2 slow. Watch the gap near the pump house. Jess adjusts position, taking careful shots at the ones that pose the most immediate risk. 1 fast infected sprints ahead of the herd, jumps a low piece of debris, and hits the fence at full speed. The wire groans and bows inward. Jess hits it in the spine on the second shot. It slumps, slides down the fence, and the wire springs partway back. The slower ones behind it tangle in its limbs. I feel a vibration travel up the tower supports as the herd presses against the outer edges. The stairs tremble under my feet. I check the underside through the hatch. The reinforcements hold, for now. Then I hear metal ringing directly below me. I lean out and see one infected has somehow made its way through a small gap at the base of the stairs. It drags itself up the first few steps, fingers clawing at the steel. Its eyes are cloudy, but its focus is fixed on the movement above. On me. I draw my knife and move down a few steps to meet it. The space is tight. I cannot swing the wrench well here. The infected reaches for my ankle. I kick its hand away and drive the knife into the side of its head near the temple, where I know the bone is thinner. The blade meets resistance, then goes in. The infected spasms once, then folds, sliding back down the steps. I pull back quickly, careful not to lose my footing. My breath feels shallow. My grip on the railing is so hard my fingers ache. I force myself to let go, to check the yard again, not just the steps. The herd moves through the path we set. The plan works, but it is messy. Some infected get wedged between couplers. Some fall and get trampled by the ones behind. We do not celebrate any of it. We just use it. The mass that reaches the inner fence is smaller than it could have been. Those that make it close enough to grab the wire meet Mara's crowbar or a rifle shot. The whole event lasts less than an hour from first sighting to the last staggering body dropping near the boundary, but it burns through most of our attention and some of our remaining energy. When the last infected stops moving, we do not relax fully. We wait. We watch. We listen for any sounds that do not match the after-quiet of an area that has just seen violence. Then the cleanup begins. That part is almost worse. We move among the bodies carefully, prodding each with a pole to make sure it is not going to reach up. We check each other's arms, necks and legs for scratches or bites. No hidden marks. No warm spots under the skin. We are as clean as we can be. We drag the bodies out through a side gate in teams of 2, hook them to a chain, and move them to the burn pit beyond the tree line. We stack them carefully, pour a minimal amount of fuel, and light them. The smoke rises straight up into the clear air. It smells thick and wrong. There is no avoiding that. By the time we finish, the light is fading. We are all stained with dirt, ash, and a few streaks of blood that are not our own. Our clothes cling in places where sweat and grime have dried. No one has the energy for a full wash. We wipe down what we can and collapse inside the passenger car and the tower. That night, I lie on my crate bed in the tower and stare at the ceiling for a long time. Lily is curled against my hip. Down below I hear faint sounds from the passenger car. Low voices. One laugh that sounds more like a breath-catching than real humor. The yard feels different after that day. Not safer in an absolute way, but more ours. We have seen what happens when a real group of infected tests its edges. We have seen where our plans hold and where they almost break. The list of repairs grows again. So does the list of things that are possible. Weeks pass. The garden grows. The coal pile shrinks. The van gets used only when it is worth the risk. We run to the city once more for medicine when Jess cracks a tooth and the pain makes her short and sharp with everyone. We raid a small dentist office, praying the antibiotics we find are still good. We test them cautiously, watch for reactions, and see the swelling in her jaw fade over days. That feels like a larger victory than lighting a whole herd at once. Mara starts talking sometimes about the future in terms longer than the next month. Maybe adding a second garden bed. Maybe trying to capture some chickens from a farm we passed on one of our early scouting trips. I start sketching better layouts for the tower's interior. I mark fields of view, blind spots, and potential spots for signal flags. It is not fancy. It is just lines on paper. But those lines mean we are thinking past survival into living. I do not forget my mother and sister. When I stand in the tower at dusk, I still find my eyes turning toward the direction of my original town. The road there is long and full of blanks, but the thought of walking it alone does not sit the same way it did before. Now, when I picture going, I see Mara in the passenger seat and Jess in the back arguing with Lily over space. I see us making a plan together instead of one man driving into the dark on some last fragile hope. One night, after a long day of patching fence and tightening bolts on the tower, I mention this half-formed idea while we sit in the passenger car with mugs in hand. I think about going back, I say, to my hometown, not the city, to see if there is anything left. I do not know when or how, but I think about it more now that we have a real base. A place to return to. That changes the calculation. Jess looks up from the game of cards she is dealing. You want to drive across half the region to maybe find 2 people who might be alive in a place that might still exist, she says. That is a lot of maybes. Yes, I say. It is. Mara turns her mug slowly in her hands. If you go, she says, you do not go alone, and you do not go with the idea that you never come back. This yard is ours. We worked for it. We do not walk away because the horizon looks interesting that day, so if we plan a trip like that, we do it the way we did the city runs. Maps, supplies, contingencies, and someone stays here. Always. This place cannot be empty. Someone has to feed the cat, Jess adds, and water the garden, and yell at the infected for stepping on the wrong gravel. That is my job. Lily chooses that moment to hop onto the table and sit on the card pile. Jess groans and gently pushes her aside. Mara smiles, a real one this time, not just a small twitch. The room feels warmer than the stove alone can explain. The world outside the yard is still ruined. Infected still wander the rails and the roads. Other survivors still make their own choices, some decent, some ruthless. Somewhere away from here, a government office maybe still flickers with emergency lights. Or maybe it does not. I have no way to know from this metal island. What I do know is this. I walked into this place expecting an empty shell to loot and turn into a private fort. I found a home that already belonged to two people who had fought hard to keep it. I found new rules, new work, new chances to feel something other than constant loss. Now, when I climb the tower at dawn, I do not just scan for threats. I scan for openings, for paths that lead out and paths that lead back. The rail yard is not the end of my story. It is the first base that feels strong enough to leave and return to. If I ever do point the van toward my old hometown, it will be with a plan, with people who argue with me when I get stupid, and with a clear understanding that even if we do not find who I am looking for, we still have a place to come home to, a place with trains that no longer move, a garden in poor soil, a stove that eats coal, a tower that sees farther than it should, two sisters who are tougher than they look, and a cat who learned to survive in a world that did not ask her permission. For now, that is enough to keep me moving, enough to keep me watching the rails and the roads without being swallowed by all the empty space between here and whatever comes next. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel, especially with extra membership: Carlos Herrera, Dominique Johnson, The Great Anywho, Jadala, Madam Midnight, Deborah Powell, William Blackwell, TJR. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares signing off.